We appreciate having the opportunity to talk about USAID and particularly USAID at 60. The government of Jamaica, the people of Jamaica are also celebrating 60 years of independence. So, we dub it the year of 60-60 for us at USAID because of that. And as you know, we've been having a lot of celebrations, throughout the world in terms of 60 years of USAID. But here in Jamaica, I really just want to sort of focus us around what we've been doing in Jamaica. And a lot of the work that we've been doing, both recently and in the past, is focused around about 4 or 5 different areas. One being education, another being disaster resilience and climate change. That also includes some of our energy work recently. And then we also have been focused a lot on, of course, citizen security. Just the other day we signed a government-to-government agreement with the Ministry of National Security and how we can help vulnerable communities in Jamaica. And then finally, on the health side, recently we've been doing a lot of work on COVID-19 and helping to get the word out on what are some of the best preventable practices with respect to COVID-19, and of course, looking at the issue of vaccines, but also more historically, we've been focused a lot around HIV/AIDS and our prevention efforts in HIV/AIDS. So taking all of that as a whole, there's a lot more that has been done over the last 60 years, but I think, when we try to encapsulate what USAID has been all about over those 60 years, I think a lot has been focused on those areas.
What are some of the key projects USAID has embarked on in Jamaica in its priority areas of health, education, and energy resilience?
Well, I think the last one first. We, for instance, just launched last year was the Jamaica Renewable Energy Alliance, where we're working with private sector partners, basically to enhance renewable energy uptake here in Jamaica. Jamaica has a great platform, just like many other Caribbean countries do, to actually integrate more renewable energy into their power grid. And so, how we can help is to bring experts and expertise from the United States to Jamaica on how to make that more available to more people and at an affordable price. So we've launched that last year through an entity called the Cadmus Group, who is one of our partners, and then of course working very closely with the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology and some of the other key industries and key departments of the government of Jamaica and also the private sector to bring about pilot projects that we could use to see that grow and move forward. On the COVID-19 interventions on the health side, we've USAID alone has spent about $8.2 million on COVID-19 interventions here in Jamaica. We helped to establish the emergency operation facility up in Montego Bay. We've also been working with the government of Jamaica on communication campaigns and also information regarding COVID-19. So we spent about $8.2 million. The U.S. government as a whole spent over $12 million, including other agencies of the U.S. government, inclusive of USAID, to try to arrest and to help with this issue. Historically, we have spent I would say tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on HIV/AIDS interventions since the pandemic began in 2000. Since we started intervening in the pandemic around 2003 or so. Obviously the pandemic was here long before that in the 1980s, 1990s. But when PEPFAR first started, it was around 2003 or so, and USAID has been programming funds here for that through our NGO partners mainly, but also through the government of Jamaica. Historically we've had programs running through the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and we continue to partner with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and private sector partners like the University of West Indies and private clinicians to administer and to bring in more HIV/AIDS clients, to see more HIV/AIDS clients. So I think that's one of the things that we're very proud about, historical record, being here at the beginning. We hope that we don't have to be here another 20 years, particularly in the area of HIV/AIDS. And hopefully, the COVID pandemic won't last 20 years. But we recognize that, there are things that come up from time to time, and we have to be prepared for it.
Onto the rural economy. Tell me a little bit about your investment there.
Well, we've had investment in the agricultural sector through some of our, I wouldn't call it, well, it's climate change. Some of it is our climate change adaptation work through large, programs that we've had. There was one called JAREACH. There was others that were much more focused on agricultural development. In the past, I think those programs were meant to spur economic growth and trade and development in those communities. Obviously, as the communities became more urbanized, those programs became less and less. But there's still a need, I think, to look at smallholder producers. USAID has always been focused around smallholder producers, not necessarily big agricultural concerns. They can get financing, they can get money, they can get resources that the small agricultural producers cannot get. So our focus in the past and has always been on how we can make sure that assets, whether they are tools, whether they are inputs like seeds and fertilizers, can actually be disseminated in a more equitable way to smallholder farmers. But also looking at the ways in which finance and banking institutions look at smallholder producers and their and what they produce as collateral for increased financing. So we've looked at all of those things, and we've been involved in that over the years, and that has helped millions, well, I should say millions, because Jamaica has only a couple of million, but hundreds of smallholder producers in the agricultural value chain. So.
Awesome. Tell me, what are some of the outstanding achievements USAID has had with vulnerable groups in Jamaica? You mentioned the Jamaica Association for the Deaf earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those achievements?
Well, I think, we work with, as I just mentioned, not only the Jamaica Association of the Deaf, but young people who might be in vulnerable communities that are susceptible to crime and violence. Young mothers, who are dealing with issues around, teenage pregnancy and things like that. There are other, vulnerable groups, people who are maybe not able to get social services because of where they are or the circumstances that they find themselves in. So USAID has been mainly focused around those groups. I have to say a lot of our interventions recently have been on young men who are vulnerable to recruitment in gangs or vulnerable to recruitment in violent activities. But we've also seen an uptick amongst young women too. So there's a need to not focus just on boys, but also on young girls and women who are sometimes the victims of these violent acts, but also are sometimes the perpetrators of the violent acts. So we have to begin to think about what are our interventions. But I feel like we've done a lot in this area, working with government, working with the private sector, working with our NGO partners. I think it's the highlight of what USAID does in country. If you look at other donors, they might do parts of those things, but I think we take a more comprehensive and a whole approach to our interventions. Yes, this is my last year here in Jamaica, but it's also my last year with USAID. As I move on from USAID, I'm retiring next year, but I'm really this year. But I'm happy as a son of the Caribbean myself, with both my parents were, born and raised in the Caribbean, and my dad passed away last year, but he was, from Guyana. My mom is from Antigua, and so I feel in many ways, life sort of comes full circle. And to have started off my career, I actually started off working on Caribbean issues in Washington, and to end here in Jamaica working on Caribbean issues after 21 years of working for USAID. There's nothing that gives me more joy than to have been able to do that, and to finish talking to all of you about what could be the possibilities in the future. So thank you.